What's good, Atlanta? This is the Vlog and Dirty Podcast, where Dirty Bird is the word if you haven't heard. I'm your host, John Buhler, staff writer, fansite.com. I'm joined today by a fellow bearded Falcons fan who would rather be talking about being in the playoffs as opposed to throwing some dirt on the season that was. Iain MacMillan, a senior editor, Sports Illustrated. Welcome back to the show, bud.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. Yeah, like you said, John, I wish we were previewing the Falcons wildcard matchup ahead of us this week. Unfortunately, not the case. So, yeah, it is time to put this season to rest. But there is hope for the future, which we will get into.
Yes, there's optimism. New Year, same Falcons, and this is the Vlog and Dirty Podcast. But yes,
Yeah.
Let's just start with some vibe check here. Let's talk about how we are feeling about the team after the regular season. So started 6-3, did not end the season very well, finished 8-9, lost last two games versus the Commanders and the Panthers in overtime without possessing the football. That part really frustrates me, but obviously we got a quarterback in Michael Penix Jr. Offense is really gelling. Got some concerns about the coaching staff, but otherwise kind of where are you feeling right now? I think 4 or 5 days since the season ended.
Yeah, the season in the past was a failure. And I think both of us said that what would have been a successful season would have been to win the division, host a playoff game, and maybe even win at least one playoff game. In my opinion, that would have been a successful season. We did not reach that. We did not even make the playoffs. We did not get a wild card seed. Now, to be fair, I mean, they didn't have a good enough record for a wild card anyways, but it was a tight wild card race in the NFC this year anyways. But yeah, it was a failure of a season. If we were just signing Kirk Cousins to that contract, he didn't work out. A lot of defensive issues that cost us a lot of games. And you know what? Our kicking game is kind of an underrated thing right now that is not being talked about enough, that really let us down at times, several times in the season. So a lot of things went wrong. Now, how I'm feeling about the team as a whole is, and I think the rest of the Falcons fans do feel this way, is optimism, because the season could have gone worse for sure.
Yes.
When the team decided to go with Michael Penix for the last 3 games of the season, imagine if Michael Penix got subbed in and he looked bad.
Yeah.
Then I would be so upset right now. But he came out and not only looked good, he looked really good. He looked like he might be like the guy for us for a long time. So because of that, there's 32 NFL teams. There are a lot of teams whose fan base are in a worse spot than us right now. Imagine being a fan of the Giants, the Jets, the Jaguars, like the Browns. The list goes on and on. We're okay. And I know a lot of Falcons fans are upset about how the season ended, rightfully so. We're going to be okay. We have things to look forward to. I saw someone tweet this out. We were the first team in NFL history to have in one game. It was a 300-yard passer, 150-yard rusher, and 125-yard receiver or something along those lines, all under the age of 25. We have an unbelievable offense.
Yes.
Are there things that we need to fix? Absolutely, both in the coaching staff and specifically defensively.
100%.
But we're okay. I mean, how many other franchises would give up quite a bit to have a young quarterback that looked that good, a Bijan Robinson, a Drake London, and some other offensive pieces? A lot of them. I mean, an all-pro guard and Chris Lindstrom still. We got a lot of really good pieces. We got to make some off-season moves. I am optimistic for next year, but at the same time, we do have to recognize this past season was a failure.
Yes. The big failure was just we could never get both the offense, the defense, and eventually the special teams all firing in all cylinders. At the start of the year, defense is playing good. Offense wasn't quite there. Cousins had a fantastic October, and then he turned into a pumpkin around Halloween. We obviously finally got a pass rush to some degree after the bye. Cousins played terribly. He brought Penix in, and the secondary fell apart. All the while, Younghoe Koo got hurt. And that was an issue in the kicking game, putting Riley Patterson in there the best he could, but obviously it's just a tough situation to be put in anyway. The schedule was really tough to begin with, and it didn't really let up. I think that's something that maybe,
which is funny because heading into the season, we were projected to have the easiest schedule in the NFL, like by a mile. But then, like all the games that were like supposed to be easy, all those teams like ended up being really good. Like the Vikings were supposed to be bad this season, one of the best teams in the NFC. The Commanders are supposed to be really bad this season, one of the best teams in the NFC. The Seahawks were scrappier than what a lot of people expected. The Denver Broncos were expected to be one of the worst teams in the league. Now they're a playoff team. So like now I'm going to be cautious moving forward about like looking at strength of schedule because you don't really know. Because we were supposed to have the easiest schedule in the NFL, and actually, I think we ended with one of the most difficult schedules in the NFL, which is great.
And then you look at the division. Carolina got exponentially better. They seem to be trending up right now too. They've got a lot of things going for them. If they know their draft pick, I think it's amazing what happens when your owner takes your hands off of everything. Just let Dave Cannella's coach and Dan Morgan build a team, and Bryce Young carved us up. So Carolina's, I'm kind of concerned about them. We don't know what's going to happen with New Orleans. They're probably going to hire Aaron Glenn out of Detroit, which would be good. And
I'll say another thing where we got bad luck with our schedule. We had to face the Saints both times when Derek Carr was healthy. Like a lot of teams, including the Buccaneers, got to take on the Saints when they had Spencer Rattler quarterback. We did not get that benefit. We had to take on Derek Carr Saints both times.
Yeah, for sure. There were games out there like the Saints ones. Like we won the game, we should have lost. We lost the game, we should have won. Very grateful to sweep the Bucs. Probably should have swept the Panthers. But yeah, I go back to Vikings. I was so wrong about that. I've been wrong about them every step of the way. The Seahawks game kind of rings. That's one where I'm like, I should have tried it there. The Chargers, I'll never figure that one out. Can't believe we beat the Eagles. There's just a lot of stuff happened with this team, but I'm right there with you. I'm pretty optimistic about it. We've hit on pretty much all of our first round picks for a long time. Even Pitts to some extent. I mean, that draft was terrible for everybody. So I
guess that's fair. Pitts is I'm out on Pitts.
Yeah. But at that point, he's still under contract at that point.
Yeah.
Whatever. But Drake London's a dude, Bijan's a dude, Penix is a dude, Lindstrom's a dude. Terrell played well at times. Just got paid a lot of money to do some stuff. But my thing is just we got the players. We got to get better coaching, man. We got to get better coaching.
See, I don't necessarily agree with that. The Falcons, and I know the large majority of the Falcons fan base, I'm on the Falcons subreddit all the time reading what people are saying. People are pissed about the coaching. I know Raheem Morris screwed up with the timeouts in the Commanders game. I think Jimmy Lake, we got to move on from Jimmy Lake, and I'm afraid that at this point we're not going to. But I'm fine with Raheem Morris, to be completely honest. A couple of big mistakes and big moments, but okay. I'm generally fine with that. Zach Robinson got off to a terrible start to the season, but first time as an offensive coordinator, he clearly got much better as the season went on, and then his offense looked very good with Penix at quarterback. Yes. Jimmy Lake's got to go though.
Yeah, we'll talk about that here in a little bit. Yeah, I got some thoughts about Jimmy Lake. My concerns with Raheem Morris are obviously I feel like every time he's going up with somebody who's I feel like he couldn't beat anybody who didn't know what they were doing. If there's a head coach that was figuring it out, I feel like we're at a competitive disadvantage.
He didn't have a great season, but a lot of fans are saying fire him. No. I think in order to fire a coach after their first year, it's got to be abysmal, and he wasn't there was worse coaches than Raheem Morris. So yeah, give him another year. If the Falcons have another failure season next year, move on. But let's not get let's give a guy longer than a season to kind of prove himself. Oh,
I don't want to fire Raheem Morris for the record.
So
yeah. I'm just it's the Jimmy Lake of it all. I was so out on it to begin with, and here we are. But we're a little banged up from a season that was just a rocky road, but for the most part, we're feeling a little more optimistic heading into the offseason. It's gonna be a fun offseason. I don't know how much cap space we'll have. Picking 15. Hopefully we get some help on defense, maybe another receiver, depending on if Rondale Moore comes back or not. Ray McLeod played very well, but we need one more weapon, I think, in the receiving core. What do you feel about that?
You think we need one more weapon in the receiving core?
Just a pass catcher or something like that, because we're going 11 personnel pretty much. I feel like you got to have a little more depth there.
I mean, yes, but also there's just so many other needs I think the Falcons need. I think they're fine on the receiver, but yeah, I mean, it'd be ideal. Sure.
But there's nothing more ideal than having a big Penix energy. Every time I type this in, I'm like, please put an X, not an S. Yeah. Every time. But future looks bright with him. His arm is so strong. He's making throws that nobody else in the league even attempts. Maybe Josh Allen or Patrick Mahomes. The guy can absolutely spit it. Some of those touchdowns he had versus the Commanders and the Panthers were unbelievable. I mean, I've kind of been jaded covering professional sports for a decade. And I'm like, whatever, it's okay. But I got out of my seat a couple of times. I'm like, yes, let's go, fire it up. There's some things Matt Ryan would never attempt that pass. Kirk Cousins would never attempt that pass. And it's been a long time since we saw a guy who would actually throw balls like that.
Yes. Now, we were famously on the draft stream when the Falcons drafted Michael Penix, and I'm a little nervous that in a couple of years that clip's going to come back out, and because I just want to make it clear, I liked Michael Penix in the draft. My issue when we drafted him was the fact we just signed Kirk Cousins to a big deal. Why are we now drafting a quarterback at 8 overall when we had plenty of other needs, especially, pass rusher, which was proven this year. But I did like Michael Penix heading into the draft. I liked him at Washington. He has a lot of aspects that I love in a rookie quarterback, and you said the strength of his arm. What I'm actually most impressed by Michael Penix, and it's what I saw at Washington, and it's what I saw in the first 3 starts for him with the Falcons, is his patience in the pocket. A lot of young quarterbacks, and we saw that, I think it was Caleb Williams' biggest issue, is they look at their first read and then they panic and their feet go nuts and then they try to improvise and do something crazy and they scramble and then they get sacked or do something else that's not good. Michael Penix gets the ball, drops back, looks at his first read, sets his feet, second read, third read, and then will either throw it away. Like, he is not scared of pressure. He's not nervous to get hit. He clearly trusts the offensive schemes and he goes through his reads. And that, I think, is the most challenging thing to teach a young quarterback at the NFL level, because quarterbacks can do what Caleb Williams does at the college level, but you can't do that at the NFL level. Michael Penix has shown very clearly that he understands that, and he will be patient in the pocket and stand in there in the face of pressure, which is something Kirk did not do this year.
No.
Like, the moment he felt pressure, he turtled. It was ugly. And the only issues that we saw with Penix this year, you can just chalk up to lack of chemistry, because all of it mostly was not good timing on some routes. There are some option routes where he saw something and the receiver saw the other thing, but he even told the media he didn't throw a pass to Drake London all season until he got named the starter. So, like, that's going to happen when you have no reps with the number one guys. So that should get fixed next year. I am curious, and I'd like to talk to a Falcons receiver. I don't know if anyone has asked him this, but is it harder to catch a lefty ball when you've been catching balls from righties all year? Because there was a lot of drops in the Penix starts, and I'm curious if the lefty spin on the ball does have something to do with it. So hopefully that gets fixed next year, because even Drake London dropped a couple balls that hit him right in the hands. So, future does look bright though. He looks like the guy. Those 3 starts almost couldn't have gone better.
Yeah, he got better with every single one of them. I know people are saying, like, should have put him in there earlier, but, like, where was the game to do that? Maybe the Raiders, you still got the same one.
And also, hindsight's 2020. Like, now it's like, obviously, yes, but, like, at the time, like, you're not going to have a quick trigger on benching a quarterback that you just paid that much. Like, you're going to give Kirk Cousins as much of a chance as possible. I'm just glad the coaching staff did pull the trigger when they did, to be honest.
Yeah, he seems ready. I think, you bring up a good point. Like, is catching a left-handed ball harder than having, like, a right-handed pass? I think it's that in a combination. The spin's a little bit different. It's also coming in probably a good 10 miles an hour faster than what Cousins was throwing. So, like, you're going from, like, it's like pitchers in baseball. You're going in there with, like, a crafty right-hander versus, it's going from, like, Greg Maddux to Randy Johnson, if you will. Right. Just a completely different dichotomy there. Yes, you're absolutely right, though. He was going through all of his reads. They really hurt Caleb Williams there in Chicago this past year. That was the one thing that I was concerned about Bo Nix coming out of Oregon, was he did that a lot at Oregon and Auburn, but Sean Payton's like, no, stay in here. And Sean Payton's really helped him out, and that's why Denver's a playoff team. He's playing really well. Penix, again, is a guy that Kalen DeBoer just spoke the world of at Washington. He was like, yeah, this is the ultimate foxhole guy. This is a guy that I want to lead us into battle, and probably the best leader he's ever coached. And that's good. I think the team really rallied around him. He didn't have a lot of fear out there. The stage didn't look too big. He was playing a lot of really high stakes games there. In the end, yes, the Raiders and the Giants were not a good team at all, but, like, he went in there and that was probably one of my favorite wins of the season. Just went out there and just beat the dog crap out of the Giants, who are just awful. Got some colleagues here on fansided.com who are Giants and Browns fans, and yes, they're having a bad time compared to us. I'll tell you that much. And Penix showed, a clutch gene, that, game tying 4th down throw against the Commanders. Obviously that game didn't work out for us, but I mean, just the fact that he can do that in clutch moments is massive. At the end of the day, in order to win in the NFL, you need a top-tier quarterback, and teams go decades without having the Bears have never had a top-tier quarterback. No.
So if Michael Penix continues to play as good as he did in his first 3 starts in his career, we're set, because you'll always have a chance if you have an elite quarterback. We are always at least a decent team with Matt Ryan, and when you lose a quarterback like that, the worry is, okay, now, like, how long until we get another quarterback like that? Because, like I said, teams go decades without finding that guy.
Yeah.
So as long as Penix continues to play like that, I'm fine. We should be happy.
Yeah, we should be. I mean, it took us 3 years. I mean, it took the Bills 20-something between Jim Kelly and Josh Allen. It takes forever sometimes. I mean, the Bears haven't had one.
Browns have never had one.
Browns haven't had one since Otto Graham.
Right.
Or Bernie Kosar. But yeah, it's been a long time.
Yeah. So once again, failure of a season, but I'll count it as a win if Penix is a franchise quarterback.
For sure. And I'll add this before I move on to our next topic here, Iain. I think having a player like Penix, it makes everything better. It makes going to work better for people who are going to Flowery Branch. It basically makes Terry Fontenot's job easier and for agency. You don't have to oversell what you're trying to build. Like, we got this. Do you want to be a part of this? Mm-hmm. Probably helps out coaches. You can bail them out in a few plays here and there. I think it basically, if you've got a player of Penix's caliber we think he could be, or what Matt Ryan was in his prime, that makes up for a lot of deficiencies where you just haven't quite figured it out yet. And, there's been some dysfunction within the Atlanta Falcons for the better part of a decade now, but like, this is a way that can expedite getting out of that much quicker.
100%. Yeah.
And
like I said, that's why like Falcons fans just relax a little bit. Cause imagine if Penix got thrown in the end of the season and he was bad, like we'd be in the worst spot possible. So at least we checked that box.
Yeah, we could be like the Arizona Cardinals with Steve Wilkes and Josh Rosen, who apparently is going to get his MBA at Penn. So congratulations there, Falcons backup coach. I wish you so well, bud. But yeah, after Big Ten Penix energy, let's move on to from atop the highest perch of Flowery Branch. I wanted to say that so sophisticatedly, but my tongue got tied, and hopefully I spelled it correctly. But how concerned are we about the coaching staff? Again, I think we talked about Raheem Morris is like, let's give him some more time. Zach Robinson did great. Jimmy Lake. Oh my God.
Yeah, we got to. They haven't announced he's been fired yet, which makes me think he's not going to be fired, which is a big problem.
The other thing is there's other like really good defensive coordinator candidates out there. Some guys that have ties to the Falcons. Ryan Nielsen's available with Jacksonville. Pretty sure
we want him though. I get that the Falcons defense overperformed the previous year, but the Jaguars defense was the worst in the NFL this season. Like, you think the Falcons defense was bad this year, the Jaguars was the worst. So I kind of don't want Nielsen back.
No, I'm just saying there's other guys out there. Like Jeff Ulbricht's got ties to the Falcons too. He's probably not going to get the Jets job.
I mean, if Robert Saleh doesn't get a head coaching gig, like he'd be the best candidate possible.
Oh yeah, he'd be good. Feel that Lou Anarumo kind of got the short of the stick there with Cincinnati.
Yep.
I don't know what the Bengals are doing. Just get rid of Zach Taylor and hire Ben Johnson. He'd come immediately. Just figure it out. There's another one out there too, defensive mind. There's somebody else significant that got let go. I mean, Eberflus was a really good defensive coordinator there for the Colts and Cowboys before the Bears, for sure.
And to be fair, after the Bears fired Eberflus as head coach, the Bears defense fell off a cliff because their defense was actually good throughout most of the season, and when they fired Eberflus, their defense came one of the worst in the NFL. So I wouldn't mind Eberflus as a defense. Listen, there's a lot of guys out there who are bad head coaches but really good coordinators, and actually maybe Raheem Morris might be one of them. I mean, it's not going to happen, but you know what I would love? Put Raheem Morris as defensive coordinator and bring in a head coach. Bring in Robert Saleh as head coach and move Raheem Morris to defense coordinator.
That'd be amazing. But
not going to happen.
No, it's not going to happen at all. There's another Gus Bradley, a good defensive coordinator there at the Colts. He got let go. Who knows what the hell is going on there in Indianapolis? The fact Chris Ballard gets to work with no consequence. That guy does nothing. He is an absolute clown.
GMs just don't get fired nowadays.
No, like Trent Baalke, like Shad Khan's like, yeah, we may move on from him. Like basically you and I on this call. It's like right next to him. It's like the stones on that man to say it.
Crazy.
But I wanted to believe that the continuity with Robinson, Morris, and Lake coming over from LA would work. Jimmy Lake, I know, had experience, was a great defensive coordinator for the Washington Huskies. Terrible head coach. Atrocious head coach, absolutely toxic. He knows defensive backs, recruits pretty well there, but this is the NFL. We'd hope he'd grow into the role as a defensive coordinator, but I keep checking on Twitter, the X, if Jimmy Lake still works here, and apparently he does.
He does, which is concerning.
Yeah, it's like I don't really know what our identity is. Are we trying to go with the Rams scheme? Are we the Falcons scheme? I don't really know what we're doing half the time. There's players at all levels of the defense, but it just the pieces don't fit.
Yeah, and you know what? One kind of a sign of poor coaching, which I didn't like this year, and this kind of goes offensively as well. So I don't know if this is on Raheem Morris, someone Jimmy Lake, is number one, penalties, which offensively, how many times did we have a drive going and then false start, illegal contact, holding would then just send us back and completely solve the drive. Actually, that happened in Penix starts too, but then Penix would then like throw a 20-yard rocket on 3rd and 20 and get a first down anyways, which didn't happen with Kirk. Defensively, we were might have been the worst tackling team in the NFL this season.
Yeah, really bad.
And I know like coaches can't tackle, but like even at the NFL level, like you need to pound home the fundamentals. And if your team isn't tackling well, like that needs to be an issue for you fixed immediately. And we could not tackle. That the Commanders game might have been the worst tackling performance I've ever seen by an NFL team. It was crazy. Nobody wanted to tackle anyone.
Yeah, just the ball control for like the Commanders, like Dan Quinn just ate our lunch. I mean, he's just really good at beating the Falcons. Just it was just like, I swear they had the ball for like all but 5 minutes in the second half.
Yeah.
It should have won that game. Daniels, again, I don't know what it is. Whenever there's a mobile quarterback, we just pee down our legs.
I placed a very significant bet on Jaden Daniels to go over his rushing yards total. He was like 54 in that game, and he went for 128. Because that's the Falcons never, in the history of the franchise, have never done well against mobile quarterbacks. Just torches on the grounds. Like we can't tackle. We can't tackle a quarterback.
And you would have thought with having Vic as like the face of your franchise for 6 years, you would have like had that built into your core.
It's like a curse that because we had Vic, now we just get torched by mobile quarterbacks all the time. And it's no matter what coach, no matter what personnel is there, mobile quarterbacks just always torch us. Russell Wilson used to torch us, Colin Kaepernick, Cam Newton, like every time we face a mobile quarterback, it's
Taysom Hill. Everybody just that's what they do. So we want to kind of overhaul the defensive staff. We want to keep Raheem Morris. We like Zach Robinson, hold on to him as long as we can. The good news is the Patriots are going to hire somebody, so he's not going to go back to the team he kind of played for, so that's a good deal. Is there any tweaks you think we want to make to special teams or the offense in terms of coaching staff?
I don't think so.
No. Yeah, I'm going back and forth on it. I'm like, it's nice having an offensive coordinator who does something as opposed to Dave Ragone, who I just think just collected a paycheck for 3 years.
Yeah. I think Jimmy Lake, and I'm fine with bringing everyone else back.
Do we do a scheme change? I guess it's so early in the process. Maybe that impacts what we could do in free agency and the draft. Again, like I feel like Terry Fontenot drafted for depth, and hardly any of those guys really played at all. Braylon Trice getting hurt the first preseason game really, I think, put a damper on the season. I thought they thought he was going to be a big impact rookie. I know Ebiketie finally got some sacks there, but I think he's hitting free agency. The defense needs to be reshaped a little bit.
Defense needs to be reshaped, but even like I said earlier, just like, and I don't know if it's a personnel thing or if in training camp you just do tackling drills every day, but like the tackling is the biggest issue because you can do so many things well, but if you just aren't going to make a tackle on first contact or even in our case second contact, like the scheme doesn't matter. Yeah, you only need 10 yards for a first down, so one broken tackle, an extra 4 yards, like add that up over a season, it's going to kill you.
Little becomes big over time. So yes, we want Jimmy Lake out of here, yesterday, and it still hasn't happened. At least we're not the Cowboys, where Jerry Jones, just whatever the heck's going on with that. That is a time right there. Mike McCarthy thought he could interview with the Bears, and he's like, nah. Okay, moving on to our next topic. Let's put a dude on a team, bro. Put a dude on the team, bro. So last episode, I listed out 7 candidates who I've seen in mock drafts or whatever that the Falcons could take in the first round. Again, the pick wasn't set at 15 at that point. We're looking somewhere like 15 to 21 is essentially what I saw at that juncture through the offseason. More and more mock drafts put out here. So I've got 7 guys. So basically what we'll do, I'll rattle off 7 guys, and then we eventually cross one off and we get to the guy we're taking for the first round pick.
Now, I need to lean on you for this, John, because I'm not a college football guy. So I'm going to be honest, I don't know these guys. So I'm going to go completely based off position and based off what you say about them, but I have no take. I don't watch college football.
I respect that. That's okay. It's different. We can be different people with different interests. This is kind of my wheelhouse, so I'm pretty excited about this. So they're all big name players from big schools. So we've got 3 guys from Georgia, my alma mater. We've got safety Malachi Starks. He's kind of like a Jesse Bates, Justin Simmons type of ball hawk out there. He's projected to go in the first round. I've seen him go as high as like the Dolphins at like 13. Jalen Walker is a linebacker. He's able to get after the quarterback, line up a little bit. He won the Butkus Award. I've seen a lot of projections for him to Atlanta at 15. He initially was mine. Michael Williams is more of a true edge. He may go a little bit higher, like the Jets or Panthers at 8. He's a fantastic player. Was hurt a little bit last year, but those are the 3 guys that I know really well. Kenneth Grant is a defensive lineman, played for Michigan alongside Mason Graham, kind of more like a Jadeveon Clowney type of player. Really good number 2 guy that I think will play in the league for a long time, in a decade. Benjamin Morrison, cornerback out of Notre Dame. He's been hurt, but anytime Notre Dame's got a guy outside the numbers who's good, you look at a Kyle Hamilton type of player, like their game usually translates to the next level. Guy that his stock has taken a hit, James Pierce Jr. out of Tennessee. Thought he was going to be a top 5 pick, looking kind of in the 20s. And then I've seen Texas A&M edge Nick Scourton, who transferred from Purdue, had a really successful year with Mike Elko. He could be a guy who could rise up at the combine. So we're looking like secondary defensive line or edge. Where do you kind of lean? Which one of those would you kind of be the most upset with first round pick?
Now I have a couple questions for you.
Yes.
Number 1, Malachi Starks is a safety.
Yes.
Are we bringing back Justin Simmons?
This would be under the premise that we may not bring him back.
Okay. So if we do, obviously I don't think we go safety. I think we're all right with the safeties.
Mm-hmm.
Second, I don't see a receiver, a running back, or a quarterback listed on this list because we know the Falcons are going to take a skill position.
Yeah. I've seen
them. Do they just take another quarterback?
I've seen them tied to Kenneth Grant's Michigan teammate, Colston Loveland, at tight end. But I think at that point, like, that would just.
Hey, listen, I have gone in the draft wanting the Falcons to take a pass rusher for 4 seasons now, and we've gone tight end, running back, receiver, and quarterback. So, like, I expect them to. Tight end makes sense. They're probably done with Kyle Pitts. Let's take a tight end. Now, let's assume they don't do that. Let's assume that they're like, all right, we have our skill position guys, and they've actually drafted outside of Kyle Pitts, like, very good selections at those skill positions. Let's finally draft for need. On the defensive side of the football. I still want a pass rusher. I know our pass rush ended up being a lot better in the second half of the season. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that was more based on actually pretty solid blitz schemes. But we need to be able to create pressure on the quarterback and not during when we don't blitz. We need a 4-man rush. So I want an edge rusher. So you said Michael Williams might go a little bit before us.
Yeah.
I'm going to say I like the idea of Michael Williams.
I like him a lot too. If I had to cross off one of the 7 guys here, I think we probably got to cross off Benjamin Morrison at Notre Dame. Again, he may have some medical issues. He may go a little bit later than where we're picking, but like.
Now we do kind of need a second corner, but I think maybe that's a second round thing that we do.
Yeah. I've tied.
Do we have a second round pick this year?
I think we do. I think I tied that to Denzel Burke out of Ohio State. That'd be a kind of guy there. There's also an edge rusher in the second round that I really like out of South Carolina who played at Georgia Tech from my backyard, and Kyle Kennard. He's really good for South Carolina. That's another guy that I would consider. So
yeah, we don't have a third. We only have 4 draft picks this year as of right now. 1 and 2, and then 4 and 7. So we do not have a third.
Yeah, I have not like finalized all that yet. So yeah, I would just did a 3-round mock just to throw it out there. And again, it's way too early. These things will shake out here. So
yeah, so I think we cross off Malachi Starks because I'm just gonna hope that we re-sign Justin Simmons.
Yeah.
So we cross off Malachi Starks, cross off Benjamin Morrison.
Yeah. So. Do you want me to rehash the 5 other guys we got to pull here? So I know it's again, like Kenneth Grant's kind of more of like defensive line. Jalen Walker's kind of more like outside linebacker than Michael.
I think we cross off Kenneth Grant.
Yeah, I think that'd be a little bit again, it'd be another guy who'd be a great player, but it's like a Clowney type of sort of guy where it's like, okay, maybe 5 sacks, but really good in run defense, but maybe we don't necessarily need that. We need some guy who's more explosive.
Is the linebacker an impactful enough position to take at 15 overall when you have other holes on defense?
This guy's really good. He's got the instincts of like Nakobe Dean and Roquan Smith out of Georgia. He won the Butkus. He single-handedly beat Texas twice.
How do you feel about our linebacking core right now?
I really like Caden Ellis. I really feel like
Yes.
he's one of my favorite players. I feel like he's just really a student of the game. Obviously, his dad's a coach, played in the NFL for a long time. His brother's in the league. Really savvy, really happy he's on the team. Seems like a really good culture fit here. The Troy Anderson pick again, I don't know if that's going to work out at all. I've seen trying to think who else. Nate Landman kind of comes and goes, and I'm missing the other linebacker of note. Who's the other linebacker we have? Ellis,
Arnold,
Ebiketie. Yeah. My thought is like if we drafted like Jalen Walker, he's basically walking. So you're basically replacing Ebiketie with Walker, I think.
Okay. I mean, I could be convinced on that. I don't want to cross him off yet. I think we cross off Nick Scorton.
Nick Scorton, yeah, I think that's a little bit too late. I think he's kind of like he's coming up. I mean, he was good for A&M. Purdue was pretty good for his first year. Then he sucked. So James Pierce Jr. might be a candidate as well. So between Walker, Williams, and James Pierce Jr., I think that's kind of where we're looking at.
Yeah. And I think based on what you've said, because I once again don't know, but if you think Mikel Williams is going to go like 8 or 9, if he falls to us at 15, then I think that's the obvious call.
Yeah, I would say like the pecking order in terms of like where I think they would go, like Williams would go like late top 10. Walker kind of goes in the teens, then Pierce is probably like late teens, early 20s is kind of where that's shaking out now. But that can all change between that. So you know what? Let's put Michael Williams on the Falcons. Let's just do it. We need.
Let's get crazy. Maybe we trade up.
Yeah, his dad follows me on Twitter, so that's
there
great.
you go.
There you go. All the more reason to do that. So yes, we got through this. Now we're going to get on to something that's even more stupid. Let's do the Jerry Glanville Onyx crystals because we got to hand out some awards. And as I came up with this because I'm like, I want just the most like this celebrating mediocrity and kind of fun stuff at the same time, which can be the Falcons.
Sure.
Jerry Glanville, the coach back in the early 90s, the 91 team, too legit to quit. Deion Sanders, Chris Miller told Brett Favre to go kick rocks, and that turned out great for us. He always wore black. So I was thinking of a shade of black, Onyx, and, when I handed out a trophy. So like the little not quite a diamond, but something you would find on a mine. That's essentially what we're handing out here.
I got you. All right. Works for me.
All right. So Iain and I split up these 10 awards. He's got 5 to hand out, and I've got 5 to hand out. So we'll work our way from the least important to the most important.
Yeah.
So I'm going to go with the Jerry Glanville Award of the best soundbite. And that goes to Kyle Pitts for I just work here. That was in relation to like them potentially moving off of Cousins for Penix and everything like that. And
which that soundbite was the final straw for me for Kyle Pitts, because I get it, he does just work there, but that just to me shows like a lack of like he doesn't really care. No. He just shows up, and I think that has been Kyle Pitts' issue since he's come in the league. And I think who was it? Was it Collinsworth was talking about during the Commanders game, I think, and he actually kind of alluded to that. He said, like, if Kyle Pitts wants to get to the next level, he needs to commit that he is a football player and comes into work every single day. And that quote kind of sums Kyle Pitts up. It seems to me like he has talent, but he just doesn't really care.
That's the Commanders thing. I didn't hear that because had the sound toned down a little bit, but that's some Florida on Florida assassination right there.
Yeah, it was pretty evident that Collinsworth, like, he didn't outright say it, but he basically said like Kyle Pitts needs to start carrying and like start showing up to work.
I mean, he's under contract next year for the 5th year option. I'd love to see him and Penix have a work together as well. But like again, it's looking kind of more of like a Vic Beasley. You've had one great year for the team, and then we're going to eventually move on. Probably this is how that's looking.
It's hard to succeed at the NFL level if you're just like, yeah, I just work here.
Very, very Josh Freeman of him, who didn't show up on his off day. He's like, this is my off day, and that was not great. I'm going to hand out the next award, the Michael Vick Award for the best play, and that is Kirk Cousins' game winner to Katerrell Lodge in overtime versus the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Matt Ryan went into the Ring of Honor. Kirk Cousins broke the franchise record for most passing yards in the game. Just carved up the Buccaneers secondary all game long. So much fun. I remember like following all this, oh my God, we're going to lose. And just the sheer spectacle of that final play was as good as the Michael Vick Award when he had that rushing touchdown over the Vikings in overtime from 40 yards out. So yeah, definitely one of the most exciting plays of the year for me.
Yeah, I agree. And that leads into my first award, which is the 1998 NFC Championship Game Award for Best Win, which is that game. And I think, now there are some other candidates, but I think overall that overtime win was probably the best win of the season. It was against a divisional rival. Kirk Cousins, say what you will about him this season. For the time being, he will hold the franchise record for 509 passing yards in that game. It'll be a great trivia question in like 20 years if it's not broken, of who holds the record for most passing yards in a single game. Kirk Cousins, who played 14 games for us. Drake London had a big game, 12 catches, 154 yards and a touchdown. And it probably was the peak of the season because after that game, it was like, I mean, I thought we were going to win the Super Bowl after that game. I thought we were going to be Super Bowl contenders at least after that game. It wasn't, we didn't fall off a cliff for another 5 weeks or so, but that was probably the peak of the season, was that overtime win. Yeah, has to be win of the year.
We had you on the show like right around that time. Like, are we gonna get the 2 seed?
Yeah, right.
What a fall off here, and then obviously I think the next one, the counter of this, the worst loss with the Super Bowl 51 award. And
yes,
you got this one. Who is this?
Yeah, it is week 10 against the Saints. Now, I kind of went back and forth because there's a few different ways you could look at the worst loss. The worst loss you could look at as being like the one that we like didn't even have a chance to win, like the team looked the worst, which you could make the argument maybe the Broncos game would make that argument. I mean, we weren't in that from the start. No. You can make the case, the Vikings game, the way that ended. I mean, the Commanders game would be the most heartbreaking with, destiny, are still in control of our own destiny. But I think overall, the worst loss of the season was to the Saints in week 10. Number one, it's the Saints.
Yeah.
So losing to the Saints, never fun. Number two, it was looking back in a season where we were 1 win away from making the playoffs. Cause I know we lost to the Panthers, so technically 2 wins away, but I think that game would have gone a little differently. To me, we were 1 win away from making the playoffs. The one that got away was this win. Koo went 1-4 for field goals, and we lost by 3 points. I mean, he goes 2 for 4. It's a tie game. He goes 3 for 4, we win. Yeah. He goes 4 for 4, we win by 6 points. Obviously, the game script would go a little bit differently if you did make those field goals, but still, my point still stands. It's tough to lose by 3 points in a game you missed 3 field goals. I'm an advanced analytics guy when I handicap games and when I bet on games, and in terms of from an advanced analytics perspective, the game we deserved to win the most that we didn't was this. The Falcons had a plus 17 success rate percentage in that game. By almost every metric, they were the better team. They deserved to win and didn't. Also, it just sucks that Marquez Valdes-Scantling, we allowed him to go for 3 catches, 109 yards, and 2 touchdowns. We can't let Marquez Valdes-Scantling do that. So I think the worst loss of the season was that. Divisional rival, should have won by almost every single metric. We all played the Saints. Lost because Koo missed 3 field goals.
This was, I think this is the right winner. This is the one I may not have put down, but I think you've convinced me this is the worst loss because I think at this point the Saints were riding a 7-game losing streak. They had fired Dennis Allen the week before.
That's
they
right.
promoted Darren Rizzi, the special teams coordinator from within. They got one of those. I swear to God, like every time the Falcons have like a whole like revenge game or got to get up for this game, they just don't do it. I don't know what it is in the fabrics of this franchise, but it always happens. But like you stole that game at home in week 4 versus the Saints. Koo played tremendously, made like the 56-yarder that you and I were just absolutely ecstatic about. But like this is the type of thing where like Saints are bad. Saints are probably in the worst spot of anybody in the division by a considerable margin. They got to get a new head coach. Mickey Loomis is going to continue to build the team, deferring money forever. Don't really have a quarterback. Derek Carr has a lot of money due to him. I don't really know what they're trying to do here. But like, if you're the better team, you need to win this game. If you can sweep the Bucs, you should be able to sweep the Saints. And obviously, Carolina was playing better towards the end of the season. We know how the division goes. 4-2 is usually what happens. But like, this was the one loss. I'm like, this basically turned the season in the negative direction for me.
Yes, and like I said, you can make the case the Denver loss because we weren't even in that from the start. You can make the case for the Chargers game as well because that was another game that we definitely should have won, maybe even more so than the Saints game. We should have beat the Chargers, and Kirk Cousins threw 8,000 interceptions and some that were like inexplicable. The offense completely just handed the game to the Chargers. That was probably the best defensive performance of the season, and we still lost. But I still think, based on divisional rival, the situation we were in, the situation the Saints were in, the amount of missed field goals, I still think the Saints take the cake.
Yeah, I was kind of leaning heavily towards the Chargers, but like again, if you win that game with Cousins, then it defers the whole Penix thing, and then we're dealing with like what do we have next year? So yeah, this was the worst loss by far. And I'm going to hand out the Mike Smith Award to the Coach of the Year. This is very obvious. It's Zach Robinson. He really figured this out. Really showed like he's one of the next strong branches from the McVay-Shanahan tree. Seems to be more McVay than Shanahan with 11 personnel versus using a fullback. There is a difference, believe it or not. I really felt that like he had a lot put on his plate there. He's doing with the quarterback with 1.5 Achilles. He's getting up there in age, new role, new team, new players. Offensive line was banged up pretty early in the season. Still was able to run the ball effectively. Bijan Robinson got better with each week. Drake London became a bona fide number one here. Darnell Mooney had a great year. I wish he would have played in the season finale to get those 8 yards, so he'd get that 1,000 on the season. Raven McLeod played really well. I thought that Zach Robinson really accelerated and really thrived in his first year as a play caller. I'm really proud of him.
Yeah, got off to a little bit of a slow start. New team, new time being an offensive coordinator, and then really thrived and found a stride as the season went on. So, yeah, I agree. Because, I mean, who else are you going to give it to? Not giving it to Raheem Morris, and definitely not giving it to Jimmy Lake. So, unless you want to go positional, then, I think Zach Robinson's
probably the running backs coach, which I'm blanking on his name. But, yeah, he did pretty good. I think line coach was pretty good for the Wild, too. But, yeah, definitely Zach Robinson.
Yeah.
Next up, you got the Billy White Shoes Johnson Award for special teams.
Yeah, I think this one's obvious, and I don't really think it needs much clarification here. We have one of our 2 Pro Bowlers is the special teamer. Kadarius Hodge made the Pro Bowl for the Falcons as the special teams player, so I think it just obviously goes to him. Can't go to Younghoe Koo. He was hurt and lost us the Saints game and did not look good. PFF actually has for punters. I was looking this up yesterday when trying to figure this out. Bradley Pinion, they have PFF ranked as the number 6 punter this year, but then I looked at all the numbers and I don't know how he was number 6. He didn't have a great statistical season. He didn't kick a ton of balls inside the 20. His net yards weren't great. PFF was high on him, but I can't really justify it, so I obviously just went with our Pro Bowler, Kadarius Hodge.
Yeah, it's probably going to be Kadarius Hodge. I think Pinion didn't have any bad punts. Maybe that's the thing here. I think Liam McCollum did a pretty good job as like the long snapper too, all things considered. But like definitely Kadarius Hodge, one of the best gunners out there, made the most of his opportunities on offense as well. Guy played, I think,
arguably might have won that Raiders game for us because the Raiders, Kirk Cousins did not play well. It's a game that got him benched, and he blocked a punt and tipped a punt, which probably led to the points we needed to win that game. So he was the game MVP.
He also helped with the first Saints win there too. I think with like the muffed punt in the end zone, I think he kind of caused that one as well too. So yeah, he impacted. He gave us 3 wins this year, so that's no wonder he was. Wow, I was hoping I spelled Kadarius Hodge correctly, and I did. It always gets in my head.
I always forget he has a D in his last name. I always want to spell it H-O-G-E.
H-O-G, Merrill Hodge. He's related to Merrill Hodge. Of course he is. It's the same. Yeah, it's Uncle Merrill. Apparently. I'm going to hand out the Rookie of the Year award for the Claude Humphrey Award, who actually won Rookie of the Year back in the 60s, and that's going to go to Michael Penix Jr. Nobody else really was close.
No. And he only needed 3 starts to do it.
I will say, though, J.D. Bertrand did kind of make some plays there in special teams and linebacker. I started seeing him more with the Guardian cap on there. Local product from Roswell, played at Notre Dame, so he kind of showed some stuff there. If Penix didn't play, it probably would have been him, but it's 1,000% Penix.
Yep. No argument for me.
Yep. And the last award I'm going to hand out before Iain hands out his last 2. I'm going to hand out the Jamal Anderson Award for the Offensive Player of the Year. I'm going to go with Drake London here. Spread the love around a little bit. I thought that he really I feel like he really established himself with like tremendous credibility across the league, particularly with the big game winner there versus the Eagles. Made a bunch of plays, played through a lot of pain this year. I thought that he showed like every bit that like, oh, he's the next Mike Evans. He plays a little bit similar to him, big basketball type of body, like a power forward. He's fantastic. I can't wait to see him play for the next decade here. He's incredible.
Now, I agree with that. Did you consider Chris Lindstrom?
I did consider Chris Lindstrom. I do feel he had a lot of holding penalties in the middle of the season. That was my big issue. Yes.
Because I believe Chris Lindstrom was our only All-Pro.
Yes.
Right?
That's true. Yes. But you got to give it to somebody else. Can't keep giving the same guy every year. This is like the coach of the year is never the best coach. It's always like the guy who gets the worst team in the playoffs.
And I will say, almost with that All Pro. Well, no, actually, even PFF. PFF has Chris Lindstrom as the best guard in the league this year. But yeah, I'm not going to argue with Drake London. Drake London, we expected big things from him. He established himself as, maybe he's not at the level of Justin Jefferson or Jamar Chase, but he would be at the top of like the next tier below that of a receiver.
I feel right there. And we got the Deion Sanders Award up next. You got the Defensive Player of the Year. Who's that going to?
I went back and forth. I went with the obvious call, which is Jesse Bates, who I love Jesse Bates. He might be my favorite player in the Falcons right now. 9th ranked safety in the NFL, according to PFF. I would rank him a little bit higher. I think he was the biggest snub. I thought they got the safeties for NFC Pro Bowl completely wrong. I think it should have been Jesse Bates and Kirby Joseph, and neither of them made the Pro Bowl. Second in the team in tackles with 102, 1 sack, 4 interceptions, 4 forced fumbles. One of the few good tacklers on the defense, which is huge. So I think Jesse Bates is the obvious choice. If I wanted to be like a hipster and make a hipster call, Caden Ellis.
Yeah.
He had 151 tackles this season, which was 49 more than Jesse Bates, who had the second most. Also had 5 sacks, half a sack less than Judon, who had the most. Tied for the most tackles for a loss with 8, 3 pass deflections, big interception. That was the Commanders game, right? That Caden Ellis had that interception.
Yes.
Jesse Bates is the defensive player of the year and well deserving, and arguably, a top 3 safety in the NFL. But I do want to give an honorable mention to Caden Ellis.
Yeah, those are the 2 I was kind of going back and forth on. So yeah, that seems like the right guy. There are other guys in defense who it should have been. It should have been Matthew Judon, but he was more about the sleeves and the sacks this year.
Yeah, I will say AJ Terrell had a very good coverage year. He shut down a lot of really good receivers. Obviously, huge game against the Commanders. AJ Terrell's got to learn to tackle, please.
Yeah,
I can't give him Defensive Player of the Year if he can't tackle.
Nah, he's very small, and he got his launch by DK Metcalf versus the Seahawks.
Yeah, which makes sense because he's a very big physical receiver.
Yes, and not necessarily a physical receiver here, but you're going to hand out the Matt Ryan Award, Team MVP.
Yeah, it's got to be Bijan. Bijan Robinson, one of the funnest, most fun players in the NFL to watch. 3rd in the NFL in rushing yards. Also an unbelievable Pro Bowl snub. I don't care. Josh Jacobs should not have made the Pro Bowl over Bijan. Now, obviously, Saquon Barkley is going to get that nod ahead of him. And who was the other pro? There's 3. Who's the other one from the? Because I didn't have an argument against the other NFC guy too.
No, probably Jahmyr Gibbs.
Jahmyr Gibbs. I'm not going to argue Bijan over Jahmyr Gibbs or Saquon Barkley, but definitely over Josh Jacobs. 3rd in the NFL in rushing yards, 14 touchdowns, 61 receptions, 431 receiving yards, 1 receiving touchdown. He is a dual threat. He has some of the best balance I've seen from a running back. He can do it all. He can catch out of the backfield. The way that his patience to hit holes. There are very few running backs, in my opinion, who in the NFL make a significant impact more than just an average running back would. And Bijan Robinson is one of those guys who's truly a game changer. I think it's Saquon Barkley, it's Derrick Henry, it's Jahmyr Gibbs, and Bijan Robinson, in my opinion, might be the only 4 running backs in the NFL who are true game changers. Now, there's other good running backs, but Bijan's a guy who can make something out of nothing, which is not a lot of running back. Josh Jacobs can't make something out of nothing. No. Bijan can. We leaned on him more as the season went on, which I liked. As much as I like Tyler Algier, we got to give Bijan like the large majority of carries. He's just the better running back. I think he is the team MVP. I feel gutted for him that we couldn't get him to the playoffs. He seems like he's a team player. He was gutted that they're not going to the playoffs. I'm excited to watch Bijan for years to come.
We always knew he could run. There's a few things about him that I love. We talked about him making the quantum leap. It's like he always falls forward when he gets tackled.
Yep.
He got so much better as a receiver out of the backfield. Early in the season, there was kind of some miscues. Very reliable there. Very willing blocker. I feel like that's a big key for him to stay on the field as long as he can.
Oh, very good block. Yeah. Well, that's another thing I didn't mention. Probably the best pass blocking running back in the NFL.
Yeah, like we're talking like about as good as Ezekiel Elliott was in his prime doing that. Like that kind of a level of a willing blocker and everything. Bijan reminds me of one of my favorite non-Falcons of all time, LaDainian Tomlinson. So like I'm very excited to have him on the team for the foreseeable future. Yeah. I don't even know who would even be second here for a team MVP. Maybe Lindstrom.
Maybe Michael Penix. No, I mean Bijan. Yeah, Drake London. I guess maybe. Lindstrom, since he's our only All-Pro.
Yeah, Bates, Ellis, but that's probably about it.
Yeah, you agree it's Bijan, right? Like if you gave out that award to be Bijan, it has to be Bijan.
Well, that's why I put Drake London for offensive player. I'm like, I'm not gonna do both. I'm not gonna double down. That's why we shared this beforehand.
And Drake London does deserve offensive player of the year.
Oh yeah, for sure. So we're gonna move on to our last topic here. That was fun. I'm really glad we did this one. I don't know if it's gonna be the Onyx crystals forever, but it looks interesting going across the bottom ticker here a little bit.
Yes.
We're gonna move.
Drake London finished 4th in receiving yards this year. Didn't know that. Didn't know he was that high up.
Really? Yeah. I figured he was well over 1,000 because like Mooney was almost there. So yeah.
1271 he had. Brian Thomas, the Jaguars rookie, edged him out by a little bit, and then of course there's no argument to be made. Jamar Chase and Justin Jefferson are the two best receivers in the NFL. I'm not going to get crazy and say Drake London's at that level.
He's the best guy without an LSU background. So congratulations.
Yeah, there we go.
Let's remember some dudes. Let's remember some birds. Let's do it.
Yep.
We're gonna finish the show up here with remembering some dudes. I wanted to remember a fullback, so we're gonna remember a fullback that we both remember in Justin Griffith. Yes, played here during the formative years for Iain's fandom here. Played at Mississippi State. Occasionally give him the ball. Loved him as a blocker. I feel like he played here longer than what he did, but he was big time.
I felt the same thing when I looked him up. It was that I thought he was with the Falcons for like a decade. He wasn't with the Falcons for very long.
No, they got my phone. I thought my laptop was going to fall up, not fall off, or run out of juice there. I looked at it like, oh my God, I've got 2% left. What are we doing? Forgot to charge it, but yes,
just right. I would have wrapped up for you. But
that's fine.
I'm glad you saved it.
Yes, starting to remember some dudes. I do feel like the Falcons, like now that we're running like 11 personnel, like we're just not using the fullback anymore. For years there, it was always a integral part of this team with Justin Griffith and Patrick DeMarco, Ovi Mahele. There have been guys over the years, particularly with the Shanahan scheme, that use this. It's a dying position, but it's a position that, like, if you have the right guy here, it can make a huge impact for your team, like Justin Griffith did.
Yeah, this is not only remembering Justin Griffith, but remembering the fullback position as well, which is a dying position. So yeah, and I've talked about this when I've been on the show in the past. I have a very big part of my heart goes to the 2006 Falcons team because that was the first season that I became a Falcons fan, and he was their fullback. So everyone on that roster has a special place in my heart.
I respect that too. That's like the same thing with like 02 for me. Like that was the first Vic year. That's the big one for me. I remember some guys from 98, but I was also really little. So guy who was around for a long time, I completely forgot about him. I'm glad you brought him up. Linebacker Stephen Nicholas.
Yeah, so I was looking back at previous Falcons seasons, and actually I didn't mention this. I interviewed Drew Brees yesterday, and I told him right off the start, I was like, by the way, you are one of my biggest enemies of the better part of 15 years. And I had to bring up the time that he threw 40 touchdowns and the Saints still missed the playoffs. That was in 2012, and I started looking at the 2012 season, and that was the year the Falcons were the number 1 seed. Kind of a forgotten year in Falcons history. That could have been a Super Bowl winning team.
Yeah.
We had a big lead against the 49ers in the NFC Championship game and then blew it. And Stephen Nicholas, spent his whole season with the Falcons, and that was his best year. He played a huge role on that defense in that 2012 team, which was a number 1 seed and 3 points away from going to the Super Bowl. He was a solid linebacker. He wasn't a crazy good linebacker, but he was a solid linebacker for us for a number of years and was, like I said, a huge player in that 2012 team. For his career, he had 378 tackles, 18 tackles for loss, 2 interceptions, 5 forced fumbles. He was a good linebacker for a long time for us.
Yes, it's like that era of Falcons linebackers and stuff. This is like in the wake of moving on from Keith Brooking after a decade. And then you've got Sean Witherspoon. Everyone's like saying this mega talent out of Mizzou is really good. I mean, I've had Sterling Holmes on the show before. Obviously, that was a guy that he would remember because that's his alma mater and everything like that. But Stephen Nicholas was like probably the more reliable player. Like was always out there. Played really well in 2012. Again, Mike Smith. Like the linebacker, that's kind of run defense. That was his bread and butter as a head coach.
And listen, not every player is going to be a Pro Bowl All-Pro. The player that can just plug a hole for you and you just don't need to worry about that position for like 8 years is an underrated guy to be. Yeah, and that's what he was. He was a great outside linebacker for us for like 8 years or however many years it was. And for that span, we just didn't need to worry about that position. He was always going to play well.
That's dude certified there. You don't have to be the best. You just got to be reliable, be a guy.
Yeah.
And I don't know if this guy next guy is a good person or not, but he had a palm tree in his living room during a Hard Knocks. William Moore made a Pro Bowl for us. Very much a jar, like to talk a lot on the secondary, like to mess around with Roddy White a bunch. I think they both made each other better. I just remember him kind of the Smitty days, like just being just a great player, a guy that, again, you don't have to really worry about it too much in the back end there for a while. Career wasn't as long as I thought it was, but obviously his best years were here in Atlanta for sure.
Yeah. I don't have anything to add about him.
Fair enough. And we'll move on to your guy, a guy that I have a lot of respect for, and a guy that I've mentioned before, and a guy that I think gets overlooked a lot, Desmond Trufant.
Yeah, another guy, like you said, overlooked. And yeah, I know you brought him up in the past, so I don't want to kind of talk too much about Desmond Trufant, but I was a huge Desmond Trufant guy. I will say, if there's one that he was part of the 2016 Super Bowl team, if there's one thing that I would say against Desmond Trufant is his best years were his first couple of years, and he kind of regressed as his career went on. I think his best year might have actually been his rookie year. But still, once again, he didn't live up to he made one Pro Bowl. He didn't live up to being all pro, but he was a guy that for a long time, we didn't have to worry about the corner spot, at least on one side of the field. So, love Desmond Trufant. And I kind of feel like AJ Terrell, when we drafted him, I don't know if same play style, but like it's just nice to have a good corner.
Yeah, that's kind of what I talked about before. It's like AJ Terrell is kind of like the new and improved version of Desmond Trufant, or the new
like when we drafted AJ Terrell, I was like, nice, we got our Desmond Trufant, and and AJ Terrell has kind of lived up to that.
And the cornerback back in the day that did that for me was Ray Buchanan. So that was like there's always kind of been like a guy there. I've always like, we got dudes in our secondary, and then we still go 350 yards receiving. Yeah. But Trufant has the pedigree. His brothers played in the league. They're all from like Pacific Northwest. He was the most talented of them.
I remember Marcus Trufant was for the Seahawks.
Yeah,
who was the other Trufant?
Marcus Trufant. I'm blanking on it too, but yeah, Marcus was the other one. I think the two brothers played at Washington State. I think
Isaiah Trufant.
There we go. Yeah. But yeah, Desmond Trufant was. If he would have had his career year in 16, we won the Super Bowl. But I think his career year was like 13 or 15 or something like that.
Yeah, he made the Pro Bowl in 2015, so I'm guessing that was his career year.
Yeah, he was. He played for about a decade and everything like that. Bounced around the league a little bit towards the end. One of our peers that was out there and did the best job he could. I don't feel like. I feel like he's going to get overlooked in time, but like he was a really special player for us for a long time.
Yes, and that's what we're trying to do here. Also, great hair.
Yes, he did great hair. That was the other part. Like that was part of the ATL swag. Just great hair. That was the other thing. He's a great coverage cornerback. Didn't pick the ball off a lot. Great hair.
Yeah. So
just an absolute.
Maybe some people will forget Desmond Trufant. We will not forget Desmond Trufant.
We will not. And we're gonna wrap up the show here. Be sure to watch, like, comment, subscribe to the Blog Nerd Podcast on YouTube. You can read all of my work on fanside.com. You want to read anything about the Falcons, you can read on Block and Dirty over on SI as well. You can follow me on Twitter, the X at Buhler118. You can follow Iain at Iain McBetts over at SI. You got anything else you want to plug? You talked to Drew Brees the other day. I think you talked to Rob Gronkowski as well.
Well, before we wrap this up, one last thing, Sean.
Yes.
This is it. The season is over. We are putting dirt on the season. I want you, and then I'll go next, to just have one final message for Falcons fans, because this is the end of the season. Obviously, you're going to keep doing the show, but give us a message before we head into the offseason, John. Is it a message of optimism? Is it a message of cautious optimism? Just give us a message before we wrap this up.
All right, going to give a eulogy. This is great. We are gathered here today on the internet and on YouTube.
It doesn't need to be. Yeah, it doesn't need to be a long thing. Sum up your feelings in a couple sentences.
The talent's here. It's a new coaching staff. Anytime you've had like a new one, you got to work out the kinks and stuff. Having a little more continuity is going to help. Look, the two times that Atlanta has gone to the Super Bowl, they came off a sub 500 season, or about where we were a year before. So like
great point.
97, that was what Chris Chandler's first year here. Jamal Anderson was starting to figure it out. And then they really took off there with the original Dirty Birds. You look at the same sort of thing here with the 2015 team under Dan Quinn's first year with Kyle Shanahan. People forget, we did not like Kyle Shanahan his first year as his OC. We're like, what, you just have your dad's last name. Then he became a superstar. Then we grew to hate him for what he does to you in Super Bowls. But be patient. Be very excited about what Michael Penix can do. And I think a lot of the guys on this team are really good people. Some of our best players are really high quality human beings. Michael Penix Jr., Bijan Robinson, Chris Lindstrom, Jesse Bates III. It's a fun, exciting team to root for. I know it's been a painfully frustrating 7 years. This is the longest playoff drought we've had since I've been a fan. Usually about every 4 years we make the playoffs and have division caliber team and everything like that. But just please be patient and but also hold people accountable. This is we should be playing this weekend and we're not. And it's not okay, but let's just put all of our eggs in the basket there for 2025, which was always the case that it was going to be. That's my message. There you go.
My message is this: Week 18, let me just read the stat lines here. Michael Penix Jr., 21 for 38, 312 yards, 2 touchdowns. Bijan Robinson, 27 carries, 157 yards, 2 touchdowns. Drake London, 10 catches, 187 yards, 2 touchdowns. Just think about that.
Yeah, just let that sink into you. Think about
that for the next 8 months.
Yeah, if you have a video game console, you want to play Madden, go play with the Falcons next year.
And also, I will say one more thing. We weren't going to win the Super Bowl this year.
No.
This was not the Super Bowl team. So I know it sucks that we're not going to see them in the playoffs. This wasn't the year. We weren't, even if we won the first round, we're not going to get past the Lions. We're not going to get past the Eagles. We're not going to get past, some of the better teams in the NFC. So even if we went on a crazy run and then went to the Super Bowl and we got to face the Chiefs, the Ravens, or the Bills, we're not beating them in the Super Bowl. So it sucks that we're not in the playoffs. This wasn't the year.
No.
Next year, I'm going to be more confident depending on what we do in the offseason to the defense.
For sure. I mean, in any given year, there's 8 teams that are like playing to win a championship. That's like Kansas City, Detroit, Buffalo, Baltimore, the teams you mentioned, essentially.
Yeah.
There's 16 teams that were in there. We think we can do it. And then there's 8 teams that think they're oranges, which is like the Bears and the Titans and the Raiders, who have no clue what they're doing. So
right.
It can always be worse unless you cheer for the Titans, which it's about as bad as it gets.
Thank God we're not Titans fans, Giants fans, Jets fans, Jaguars fans, Raiders fans. Like you could go down the list. We're okay.
Yeah,
we have things to be optimistic about.
Yeah, my .com colleague Quinn Everts, who's a Browns fan, he's like, yeah, I'm looking for a new team, and he's contemplating on joining Dirty Bird Nation. So maybe I'll get him on here at some point and bring him got to get more minute people who like this team.
Yeah. Also, I've said this before, our fan base needs to be better next year.
Yes. We do. We really do.
So maybe we should start recruiting from distraught fan bases. Maybe we need to go on a recruiting trip.
Maybe we just do that. Maybe we go live. Maybe you just come down to Atlanta and we just start recruiting people.
Have you considered cheering for a team that's going to break your heart every year? But they're not going to be bad, but they will break your heart eventually.
We will go to every station in Marta and do that.
Perfect.
That'd be good. Once again, thanks for coming on, man. I'm really happy you made time for me today.
Yeah, of course. And yeah, as you mentioned, I did interview, it was a duo interview with Drew Brees and Rob Gronkowski, 2 players who caused us a lot of heartbreak. I mean, Gronkowski did not play in that 28-3 game. He was injured, but he was part of that roster, and he then came to the Bucs. And don't worry, Falcons fans, I immediately brought that up, that I hate both of you. And I tried to get them to tell people to move on from the 28-3 jokes. Gronk came with a compromise that instead of once a week, once a month. And then he said, as time goes on, the jokes will happen less and less. So I guess I'll take that compromise.
I'm just
once a week's too much. I guess maybe once a month we can hear a 28-3 joke.
No, I know.
So check that interview out. It's on the Stack in the Box YouTube page.
Yeah, I'm just kind of glad that Gronk can still count that high. So I'm really proud of him there.
Boom. Roasted.
Better man than me. That would have been tough for me to interview Drew Brees. I'm just like, no, I mean, I've interviewed Tim Tebow. That was tough for me personally, but he's a nice guy, so whatever.
I mean, he came on the Zoom recording, and he immediately said, "You have a Falcons helmet. You're a Falcons fan. Like, we're already starting off the wrong foot." And I said, "Correct, Drew. We are. You are my enemy. So we'll get through this interview, but you are my enemy."
That's wonderful. But yeah, once again, thanks for listening, and this is the Blog and Dirty Podcast.